Alright, welcome back to another video. This video I'm continuing some work on my new to me 2002 Crown Vic. And a common problem in the Crown Vic town car, Grand Marquis, Panther platform cars pre-2003 is when you're driving down the road, going over bumps, gravel roads, you'll notice it sounds like metal on metal rattle coming from the front of the car. A lot of times you might mistake it for like a control arm bushing going bad. It does not sound like a good sound when you hear it. And it's a fairly common problem on these cars, especially when they get some miles on them or some age, where the sway bar end links, which is the little rod right in the middle of the screen there, they go bad. They don't always fail completely. Like on my car, they're making a bunch of noise. I'll get a better shot of it here once I get the wheel off, but they make a bunch of noise, but they're still all together. You know, a lot of times the sway bar end link will completely come apart, and that's very easy to notice. But in our case, they don't look bad, but they are. And I'll show you what it looks like when I get the tire off here. So the first step is to get the car jacked up, put it on jack stands. You want a jack stand on the frame because we'll need to lift the lower control arms with a jack. Then we'll get our wheels off and I'm going to do a brake job at the same time. Alright, so I've got the passenger side wheel and tire off. I'm going to be doing brakes at the same time, which will be good. It'll give me a little more room once we get the caliper out of the way. This is the bolt that we're after for the top here. Right here. This nut just comes off. And then the back of the link right here, you can see the link. You can see the metal ball on the inside. Twisting it here, so it's obviously worn out pretty good. And down on the bottom, it's the same thing. There's a bolt that goes through the actual bar itself here, through the bottom. We need to take that off and get it out. It's not real hard, but I kind of suggest that if you're not going to save them, it might be easier just to cut them off than to try to unbolt them, because everything just wants to spin when you try to unbolt it. There is a little Allen key that can fit in the bottom of here to keep it from spinning. But it's also easier just to take a grinder with a cutoff wheel and zip that right off. Now is also a good time to inspect your ball joints. You can see, like, if you look at my upper joint here, it's pretty bad. The rubber boot is all cracked. These ball joints are not serviceable, which means they don't have a grease fitting on them. So these will probably need replaced soon. They haven't really been making noise though, so it might have a little while. In theory, it's not too hard to replace. There's just two bolts here, and then this compression bolt here to get the upper ball joint off. But the problem is, this is a pinch fit here, and if it's any amount of time, especially in an area where there's corrosion, it's really hard to get this out of here, and you'll need an oxyacetylene torch or pneumatic pickle fork or something to get that out of there. A regular pickle fork usually won't work. And then the problem is you have to have the car realigned, because as you can see, this is how you do an alignment on the front end of a Crown Vic right here, and these will be completely off afterwards. So it's something that the DIYer can do. But if you have a shop that is reasonable and doesn't charge you too much for the parts, it's not really, going to be too expensive to have someone do it, and then they can align the car afterwards. All right, now I've got the brake rotor out of the way. You can see, loosened up this top bolt or nut, which is 15 millimeter. And then what I'll go ahead and do while it's still on there, I'm gonna hit it once with a hammer. You can see, got that knocked loose now. I can take it off the rest of the way, and I'll just take that off, and then I'll use like a punch or a screwdriver to knock it through the rest of the way real quick. Alright, you can see the top's out. Now's a good time to show you what the problem is. So obviously all this is gone, it's deteriorated, And here's the sound you hear when you go over bumps. You can hear the bottom one bouncing off of there. Not supposed to make that sound. So that's the problem we're dealing with over here. All right, so this bottom one. So it's either a 5 or a 6 millimeter Allen key. Fits in the bottom if you can get it in there. That way you can keep that hole bolt from turning. Remember earlier I said it's kind of easier to use a grinder if you're not concerned with it. So that's what I'm going to do. Alright, so I've got it ground off. There's just one little spot that I couldn't get. You can see this is like just barely on there. Alright, so now I've got the old one out. So here's our new one. What it looks like. That's what it should look like. This is a sealed one, kind of like the factory one. This one's made by AC Delco. I'll put a link in the description below. If I compare it to the OEM one, it's about the same, maybe just a little bit more substantial, but it's basically just OEM replacement. That's how it should look. You can get them with Zerk fittings, but the OEM ones have lasted almost 18 years, so if I get 18 years out of these, I'll be pretty happy. All right, now as far as putting the new one in, just take the bolt off. And this one does have a 6 millimeter Allen key. On the new ones, we'll start by putting the bottom in first. We'll get our bolt on. And then we will get this top one finagled around into place and get it on here. Alright, so I've got the bottom one just started. The top one, it's not quite lining up. So to get that into place, I'm going to go ahead and take my jack and jack under this control arm up until we can get this in a position where it will just slide right in through the hole here. And I can get that nut on started. Then we can just tighten it all down. All right, so that just took very little jacking under the control arm to where I was able to slide that through. Same thing on this one, just get the nuts started. And then we'll tighten those down real quick. The other side is the identical procedure to this side. All right, so with these AC Delco replacements here, the top one is a 5 millimeter Allen and then a 17 millimeter socket. You can see I just hold that there. Use my ratchet wrench. Makes this really nice. Just lock this down so it's nice and tight. And then we do the same thing on the bottom. Alright, so the bottom one uses a 19 millimeter socket, a wrench, and a 6 millimeter Allen. So far I don't need the Allen key, so I'm just going to slowly tighten this down. This is kind of a tight spot to work on this one. Just keep at it and we'll get it snug down. Alright, so that's all there is to it. The bottom one was able to be tightened up without even using the Allen key, which is nice. We'll preview the brakes I'm putting on there. So that's all there is to it. Enjoy your quiet ride. Again, I'll leave a link in the part that I use in the description below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe for more. If you have any questions, be sure to leave a comment below. Until next time, we'll see you later.